All right. So the second part of this training is the safety piece, and this is what I was hired to do. I started here in 2014, and Market challenged me with changing the safety culture, and and part of that was moving towards, and we'll talk about in terms of engaged safety culture, proactive safety culture. What does that mean? So this is somewhat of a kind of like my bread and butter, I guess. So where it starts, and you've probably have seen it, or if you haven't seen it, you will see it. It's the whole idea of our value system. So safety is a core value of ours, and much like integrity, it's a foundational value, meaning that it has to be there. I mean, when you come into any kind of organization, there are two things that you're just going to assume are there. It's that a safe work environment, and everybody's on the level. So it's like I said, it's foundational. From there, we build into things like valuing all employees as people, developing that sense of ownership, and then those aspirational values that we're always going to set our sights on are the ideas of excellence and innovation. So that's kind of like that pathway that leads to the values. So for us, when we take that safety value, it breaks out into 8 different basic safety rules. So the first one, which is in my mind, the most important, is that stop work authority. So a lot of times I'll talk in terms of tools and what you can do with something. Stop work is not a tool. Stop work is a mentality. It's really an answer to a question. Do you feel comfortable questioning authority? And some people don't, some people do, but all of these other basic safety rules are going to rest on the assumption that if the person asking you to do something is wrong or not thought through, you need to be able to say, hey, I have a question. Hey, I'm not comfortable with this. We saw a near miss at a facility that I thought was funny, that they were disassembling a pump that had been in I think a flammable material. And in my mind, I'm reading through the actual investigation, and I had to ask myself, how many times does something have to catch fire before I'm like, you know what, I think I'm done doing this. I think I need to go ask. But in the incident reports, it caught fire multiple times. Because I guess they had a torch, and they're trying to get a bolt off or something, and it kept catching fire. And I'm thinking, at some point you got to say, all right, I'm done. Somebody else has to look at this, because I don't like where this is going. So stop work is very important. And then instinctively, and STAR comes out of that, and we'll talk about that later, is to say that once you've stopped, STAR is that fundamental tool that we all need to develop. Stop, think, act, and review. If I stop myself from doing a task, picking up a box, pushing something, carrying something, I'm thinking about the task. Am I prepared? Do I have the right tools? Do I have the right understanding? I've done the task, which is act. Now I'm reviewing. What did I learn from that exercise? And that could be just a few seconds of everybody running through that tool in their mind. Follow procedures, PPE, those things are somewhat straightforward. Reporting, we'll talk about an observation program that we have here. Working smart, that's when you're starting to put things together, which is to say that, yes, I'm following the procedures, I know what I have to do, but you know what? If something doesn't look right, I'm going to stop and question it. Accountability, I've got a part of that presentation that we'll go through, which is, if I told you to go out and follow procedures, that's something that seems intuitive. You just tell me what the procedure is, I'll follow it. But if I say go out and hold yourself accountable, or go out and hold other people accountable, that is a little bit different. That's not intuitive. And then, of course, we talked about success. So when we talk about Kalamazoo safety, I talk in terms of a relentless approach, meaning we may have setbacks, we may have problems, but we're not going to stop. And I put this in terms of not me, us, the system. to where sometimes you may have roadblocks and I may be that roadblock. You may say, Vince, I need this, and I may not provide or respond with a sense of urgency. You need to be able to confront me and hold me accountable. We'll talk about accountability, like I said, on what that looks like. So our Kalamazoo safety stems from safety as a core value, supports and sustains our basic safety rules, transforms us from an engaged workforce, because we're very engaged, into a proactive safety culture. And we've still got a ways to go on that. So, and I got a picture at the very end, which I got a neat little story that'll talk about that. Tracking trends, leading and lagging indicators, and we want to make sure that we're talking about our SHIA objectives. SHIA, Safety, Health, and Environmental Affairs, in case you're wondering what that's different. So the expectations I have for you guys, have that questioning attitude, which is something I'm always going to challenge people to ask questions. Attend huddle meetings, safety rallies. We're planning one right now, which will take place starting today and into next week. Do the pure safety training, submit near misses observations, voice safety rule violations, which is now the accountability. And of course, remember me if you have any questions. So the new hire training, we've already done the yellow belt CIP training. We'll go through some fundamental things with regard to Kalamazoo safety. I've got one slide with environmental management, and then lessons learned, I got one slide that I'll talk about. So the pure safety modules that we require for all the new hires, we'll have to go through that. I don't think you probably won't. I won't make you do the new hire ones. You're not really a new hire, but we'll get you plugged into our calendar. We do things a little differently than everybody else. So some general considerations: all visitors have to sign in and out. Obey all signs and warnings. Be alert to floor hazards. Do not enter restricted areas. You guys work in building 3, so you've probably seen the dark side. Mm-hmm. We need to stop calling it the dark side, because it's well lit over there now. There was a time where there's just no lights over there.
Oh Lord.
So use handrails when ascending or descending stairways. Smoking is prohibited except in designated locations, and don't operate machinery or equipment unless you're authorized and trained to do so. So one of the things that we've been talking about is getting more people over in Building 3 trained on the forklift. So don't operate a forklift until you've been trained. And not that people run around taking pictures of things, but if you do take pictures of things, make sure you've got approval to do so. So high noise areas, material prep, grinding, welding. One of our projects is to reduce the noise in these areas, but right now those employees are in a hearing conservation program, so they have to wear hearing protection when they're in those areas. If you go into those areas or you're going to be in there for more than like 10-15 minutes, I would encourage you to wear the hearing protection. Flammable liquids, we got to make sure they're stored in flammable liquid cabinets. Keep lids closed. Make sure they're not stored or used near ignition sources, and then make sure that bulk containers are grounded and bonded. So if you look at a 55-gallon drum, you'll see clips all over the place. If they look like they're off, please come see me. Lift trucks, we have them all over the place. Between maintenance, our janitorial crew moving stuff, the milk run truck, even the lift trucks over in Building 3, they're coming from all directions. So be on the lookout for those. We don't have a lot of hazardous materials, but we do have a lot of oils, coolants, and like packing material, liquid stuff that you guys got. So make sure that you're aware of those hazards, and if you have any questions, please come see me. Don't bring hazardous chemicals into the facility. PPE, make sure you're wearing safety glasses with side shields, hearing protection designated areas. Open-toed shoes, sandals are prohibited in operational areas because steel-toed shoes are required everywhere. Suitable gloves, we'll talk about hand safety in another section, but yeah, we'll just talk about that. Face shield safety glasses required for all hand grinding and sanding. If you're using compressed air, you have to wear a face shield, or you have to wear glasses like these. I don't wear these just because they're cool. They're also protect my eyes. So it's funny, when I got them, I put them on, And Lay's like, you're gonna wear those out? I'm like, why not? They're cool, right? She's like, so injury reporting, report everything. So I tell people, with regard to our observation program, if there's anything, and I like to use the word uncomfortable. I don't like to use the word safe, unsafe, right or wrong, because a lot of those times you may not know. You're not a safety professional. You may see somebody doing something, and it may be according to a policy or a procedure or a standard, but if it makes you uncomfortable, let's talk about it. So, and that's the way. If it's okay, let me explain why it's okay. Ask the question. So always you're going to start with our observation program, and then you'll probably see that from your leads or from your teams that will communicate that. I don't think you're going to be working around rotating equipment, but we do have an entanglement prevention policy, which means that sleeves are rolled up or they're tight. Jewelry that hangs or dangles needs to be protected against from pulling you into the. Let's see here. So emergency response information. So if you do hear a facility-wide alert, it's going to be the evacuation. We do have another alarm, which I'll talk about on another slide, that's more local. You guys won't hear it in Building 3, but if you're on the shop floor around Integrex, you might have already heard it. But we'll talk about that. All clears in severe weather are going to be intercom over they're going to be voice command over the intercom, except in Building 3. We don't have an intercom over there. So we have, I don't know if were you here when we did the...
Yeah, the little test.
Yeah.
Or where to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What'd you think about that?
I like that.
Okay. So we got an air horn, so that the emergency response team has radios that they can monitor the weather. So if there is a tornado, they hear it on the weather radio, and then they can sound off the air horn and lets people know to go to the location. And I got a map to show you guys where to go. So if we're evacuating, we're going to go to the corner of Palmer and Factory. If we're going to severe weather, there's like a little records room for Building 3. Office employees will go to Lake Michigan, HR, or the office cafeteria. Manufacturing will filter into the main hallway. So when we look at that meeting, so we're approximately, where are we right now? We're approximately right about up in here. Mm-hmm. So, we would come out and the meeting location is down here. So when we look about severe weather muster locations, like I said, the office will be in HR and payroll, like Michigan conference room, office cafeteria, and then the shop employees will filter into that hallway. And over in Building 3, we've got a little record room for everybody. Did everybody fit in there all right? Was it too crowded?
I mean, it was a little crowded, but there was room. There was plenty of room.
So when we set up that room, we knew that eventually, with more people going over there, that eventually we'd have to look for alternative spots, but still worth it.
Probably depends on how many boxes you have stacked up in there too.
Yeah. So, like I said, we've got a lot of oils, coolants. So we've got spill kits located throughout the operations, different locations. They've got the absorbent pads, pigs, and rags for cleaning things up. First aid stations. So we've got one across from Human Resources. We do have a vending station for like dosage related stuff in the office cafeteria. That'll cost you 5 cents. We got a similar thing in the office and the manufacturing first aid station in Building 2, and then Building 3 has a first aid kind of cabinet outside the cafeteria. So if you need something that's in one of those vending stations and you don't have a nickel, come see me. The intent is not to make money off the employees, it's just to manage that inventory. So that other alarm that I was talking about is our emergency response alarm. So if you have an emergency to where somebody needs medical attention, you can dial the quad 6 number from any phone and it'll ring to the supervisor's office. And from there, somebody can tone out the emergency response team and let them know where the emergency is. So stay on the phone till somebody from the emergency response team gets to you. So, you'll know because they're wearing the red shirts. Now, if you are near where the Integrex is or the supervisor's office, you'll hear that alarm, and sometimes it catches people off guard, and they think it's the evacuation alarm. So that's why we do drills, so people can hear the difference between the two of those. So one, and this is slowly changing. This is changing. So this year probably will signify a change where our focus of safety is going to shift from, because we still have a lot of hand injuries, but we're seeing a lot more strain and ergonomic related injuries as well. So I'm going to run through the hand safety, and we'll do a hand safety campaign later on this year. So the concern is that we work with our hands in the industry that we're in, and it's no surprise that we see a lot of those injuries, lacerations. We just had an employee just crush 2 of his fingers, so it's not a surprise. But when we want to get to 0 accidents within the organization, we have to address this. We can't just say hand injuries don't count. So let's skip over that part. So for us, it comes into different tools that we want to put into place. So making sure that we've got hand safety risk assessments for each primary job function, which is to say that when you're working in distribution, or you're working in assembly, or material prep, or deburr, somebody has said, what is the appropriate way to protect your hands in those situations? From there, we make sure that we have the appropriate gloves, whether it's cut resistance, heat resistant, chemical resistant, impact resistant. We've got electrical resistant. We've got the gloves that are going to protect the employees from the situations. Training is really in 3 parts. You're seeing the general training that I give all new hires. Like I said, we'll do annual refresher during the hand safety campaign, and then as you move to your departments, you're going to hear different information depending on which cell. So if you're in distribution, you're going to hear something different than material prep or assembly or deburr or Integrex. So I'm the one who puts the glove boards up to make sure that everybody understands what gloves are available and what purpose they serve. So now if you're doing a task and you're like going, man, this glove is not working for me, please let me know. We can find some gloves that do. And I don't like calling them glove use requirements, because it's kind of funny when I say here's the requirement, then I jump right into the exceptions. I like to call them foundationals. The foundation, we're going to start from these 2 points and then build off of that. And the first foundational is, if you're going to do any operational task, you wear gloves. You're pushing, you're pulling, carrying, doing something with your hands, and you're doing some kind of material handling, you're wearing gloves. Now, from that point, you're going to say, okay, Vince, what about these situations where maybe the risk is minimal, or it doesn't make sense to wear gloves? Let's write up an exception. Let's make sure we get it documented. So, for distribution, this is where we have the JSAs that we need to start developing, and this is what we were talking about with regard to the safety team and getting somebody from the distribution team to be involved in that process. So the exceptions that are just kind of go without saying: if wearing gloves creates a greater hazard, you don't have to wear gloves. If you need precision, and that's what people always complain about. Man, I need to pick up these little tiny springs. Well, you don't have to wear gloves for those. The likelihood that you're going to slice your hand open with a little tiny spring, I don't think that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And then, as these special circumstances come up, bring them to me, and we can talk about them and document them and make sure that they're appropriate. The other foundational piece is to not wear gloves around rotating equipment. So, excuse me. And I furtherly, I define that as those high energy exposed rotating equipment. So now if you're working in deburr and you want to protect your hands against things that are flying off at you, yes, please wear gloves. Now, if you're into grinding and, you know, you've got a, you know, we get people who get contact dermatitis, you're gonna see them wearing nitrile gloves. But we've already talked about those kind of things to where you want to make sure we're protecting the employees. Electrical safety applies to the maintenance team. We do require visitors when they come in to wear gloves when they're handling things. So they have the same kind of expectations for our employees. Contractors, we handle a little bit differently because we encourage them to wear gloves. We can't require them to wear gloves unless it's stipulated in the contract of the agreement. Now, the flip side of that is if they choose not to follow our procedures, we just don't do business with them. So they have to, so more often than not, contractors do we deal with are very on board. I would skip over that. So there's two programs I like to cover just briefly. One of them is hazard communication, also known as right to know. One of the modules, if you haven't already gone through it, is hazard communication. What it doesn't go through is the location of the written program and how to access safety data sheets. So I have that written program, I have it electronically. If you want to see it, I can send it to you, I can print it out, I can give it to you. The safety data sheets are all located on a system called the Dolphin system. I can provide that link, but if you need to see a chemical safety data sheet, please by all means just ask me for it. I can provide that for you. The other one I like to talk about, which doesn't always apply to everybody, is a lockout tagout. Now, the important thing here is I've seen a lot of people get hurt because of a misperception. So the standard and the way it's trained is to say that if you're doing lockout tagout, I have to train you to do lockout tagout. That makes sense. If you're not trained to do lockout tagout, just don't mess with locks on machines. But it creates a kind of a gray area. If I don't spend time talking to all employees about when lockout tagout is necessary, how do you know when you've crossed that line? And that's where I've seen people get hurt. Because the standard will say you have to do lockout tagout for maintenance activities. And you may say, I'm not in maintenance. Well, that's not the way it works. Maintenance activities is when you're using a piece of equipment other than the way it was intended. So everybody has, you know what a garbage disposal is. You have a garbage disposal. I can't believe how many people don't have garbage disposals. Like, how do you, you filthy animals, what do you do with your food? So something falls into your garbage disposal. You know, everybody has had that thought. What happens if it turns on while my hand's in there? You are doing a maintenance activity. That is not the intended purpose of a garbage disposal for you to stick your hand in there. You know, and then you contrast that with something like checking your oil. That's not how the car is meant to be used, so you checking your oil is a maintenance activity. But the next question you have to ask yourself is, what happens if it turns on? So if you got your hand in the garbage disposal and it turns on, you might lose your hand. You're checking your oil and somebody, your buddy turns the car on, probably nothing. But now if you got your hand past the fan belt and he turns it on, now you might be in trouble. So those are the thoughts that you need to have when you're interacting with a piece of equipment. What happens if it turns on? You know, I reached in somewhere and, well, maybe I better get the keys. You know, put the keys in my pocket, you know, disconnect the battery, you know, those kind of things to protect yourself. So one of the more, I can say it's funny because she didn't get hurt. It was scary. It was more scary than painful. But it was something right out of like the Terminator or something. So, you know, we had this assembly line and there was this pocket and there's a plastic cap that set that kind of a line just right. And then a robot would swing around, grab the cap, swing back, set it into the process. And all that she had to do was put the cap there and then signal, two-handed signal, so that the robot would know the cap was there. But she put the cap there, sent the signal to the robot. The cap wasn't aligned. So the robot will only swing around when the cap's aligned. but she had already set the signal that it was there. So she saw it wasn't aligned. She reached in to realign it. Soon as it aligned, it told the robot it was there, and it swung around, grabbed her hand. And robots don't care. They're not gonna go, oh, that's a hand, not a part. It tried to pull her, and she's freaking out. I mean, it was just, since it's plastic and you don't want it to grab too hard, it wasn't enough to really hurt her hand, but it was enough that she couldn't get her hand out. And it was trying to pull her into the machine. So she's freaking out. She couldn't get away, and she thought it was trying to kill her. And the robots are coming alive. And so, but in that regard, she didn't see herself as doing anything maintenance related, but she was doing something not as it was intended. So keep that in mind. And I like I said, I've seen a lot of people get hurt, not with the kind of equipment that we have here, a lot with robots and rotating tables and things that have all these different moving parts that you may have, we had all these, when I worked in Three Rivers, we had all of these light sensors. And sometimes you would go, oh, this is not working. Oh, light sensor's dirty. And you'd reach in and you'd clean off the light sensor, and all of a sudden it would want to complete its motion. And usually people get their hands smashed. Sometimes it would jerk them right off their feet as the whole table turns and pulls them into something you could, it's scary. So I'm going to talk about stop work authority a little bit. How are we doing on time? I'm going to go over a little bit. Is that okay? I don't want to keep you guys from your lunch. So stop work, like I said, is our first of our basic safety rules, and it's meant to empower you. When you come across a situation where you're just not comfortable, where you're just not sure what the answer is, the answer is always going to be stop. We don't want you to do anything you're not comfortable with. We don't want you to put you in a situation where you could potentially hurt, especially if you're going, man, I knew I was going to get hurt. If you have that thought, let's stop. And so, like I said, it feeds right into the second tool, which is STAR. What can go wrong? You stop, analyze the risk. Am I in danger? Why am I getting this weird feeling? I get this weird feeling in my stomach. Stop. And then now you move into think. Use that questioning attitude. Do I need help? Should I get a cart? Do I know what I'm doing? Have I been trained in this? What did Vince say? All of that stuff should run through your mind. And once you go, you know what? I think I can handle this. Or I'm going to go get somebody to help me. I'm going to go get a dolly. Once you've done the thing, you follow the guidance, do as you're trained, perform the action, and then review it. Did it work out? Or maybe you're just going to go through this cycle. You may try it, it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Stop again, and then go through and try it again. So it's just a simple tool that you're going to start with, but it's not the only tool when it comes to stop work. So like I said, when you perceive a condition or at-risk behavior, when you're uncomfortable, and everybody knows what it feels like to be uncomfortable. So you feel something uncomfortable, stop. And usually at the end I'll say, who was uncomfortable at the beginning? How do you feel now? You good? And then you can proceed. So don't get caught up on lists. It's not a matter of making sure that, oh, that's on the list, that's not on the list. Did it make you feel uncomfortable? Did it make you feel uncomfortable? And then we just proceed from there. That step 2, use the right tool. So we talked about STAR. If it's a group of people, it's the 4 of us are going to go do a task, and we're going to go to different areas. Maybe we can't see each other. Maybe we'll pull out a last-minute risk assessment form. We'll fill it out. I'll fill out my part. You'll review it. You go, yep. And we're going to coordinate our watches, at this time, so everybody understands. Like for example, working on lights. Make sure before you drop it, you could see my eyes, and I got my hands up like this, you know, and I don't want you to drop it on me. So, DMAIC, that's a tool we use when we have a doctor case. Define, measure, analyze, implement, and control. Usually that'll take us a week or so to go through that entire process to make sure it doesn't happen again. So that step 3 piece is to say that, you know, get the resources you need, make the adjustments, you know, make sure that you have everything you need before you proceed. We've done this, you know, in seconds. We've had something happen where we went through the entire process, it took us a whole month or longer. You know, we had a customer send us some seals that we just weren't sure what they were in. So we had employees say, stop, I'm not sure what to do next. And those things sat for about a month before we proceeded. So don't feel like there's a time constraint. We're not going to proceed until everybody's comfortable. And then, you know, we want to make sure we're documenting it, we're reviewing it, and we're learning from those exercises. Put it all together, stop the work, use tools to determine the safe path, act to make the workplace safe, and then proceed to make sure we're capturing that lessons learned. So now I'm going to jump into our, you know, another one of the basic safety rules is that accountability piece. So what does it mean to hold others accountable versus be held accountable? So the one thing I always like to preface this with is that this is as any accountability policy or process, there is elements of discipline that go along with it. But this is a long process. Nobody is going to walk up to you in one day and go, you're in trouble. You know, you as we go through it, you'll see that you really have to want to be in trouble. And we'll give people lots of outs. Sometimes we say give people too many outs. But we'll talk about the basic safety rules, safety as a value, which we talked about. Talk about the policy itself, scope. I added elements of scope, give you some examples, and you know, if you have any questions, we can do it. So where this one feeds from is follow procedures. So let's say we've developed the procedures, we've put them out there, we've told you, we've communicated it, and then now we have a situation where you're not following the procedures. So that's why it's important to use stop work, because if you have a question about a procedure, ask it then. Ask it at the beginning. Don't find yourself, you know, 3 months from now going, yeah, I didn't like that policy when Vince told me about it. I thought it was dumb. No, if you think it's dumb, tell me now it's dumb. Don't wait till somebody catches you not doing it and then say it's dumb. So don't tell me it's dumb. Hurt my feelings. So then you follow the procedures, and then we talk about accountability. So of course it stems from us having that commitment to safety, and everything's going to come from looking out for each other. You know, one of the concerns is, hey, will this turn into a punitive kind of process or policy? Punitive, if you're not, punitive is when you get in trouble and it's not your fault. You know, you tell the officer, you know, well, there's a tree that was blocking the stop sign, and you still get a ticket. That's punitive. You know, you're like, wait, there was extenuating circumstances. You know, how was I supposed to know the speed limit? There's no speed limit sign there. Well, you should have known. You know, then that's punitive. Now, if you're going down the expressway and you pass the speed limit sign, it's a 75, and you're going 95 miles an hour, you know you deserve that ticket. That's accountability. That's when you're like, yes, I broke that rule, I deserve this ticket. That's when you know accountability is fair. So we want to avoid those situations where, and I always tell people, new employees can't have safety rule violations. Why? Because, you know, there's 3 things that have to be in place. 1, I have to tell you. I mean, that makes sense. You know, I can't just say, hey, here's this rule you never heard of, safety rule violation. That's punitive. 2, you have to acknowledge it. Yes, I understand what you're saying. Yes, I get it. Because if you don't understand and I punish you again, that's punitive. You're like, I didn't understand. You know, you told me in Spanish. I didn't get it. And the third is, you know, I have to have that demonstrated competency. You know, to say that yes, you've demonstrated, you know what I'm talking about, you've done it. I've seen you do it. Now at that point when you're not doing it, I know that it's a deviation as opposed to a misunderstanding. So we talk about safety rule violations, and it's not that people get hurt that makes it a safety rule violation, and it's not that they're dangerous that makes them safe. What makes them safety rule violations is somebody has said, don't do that. So if I say don't lift more than 50 pounds, and you say, got it, Vince, I'm not going to do that, and for a month you're not lifting more than 50 pounds, and then I catch you lifting something that's 100 pounds, and you hurt your back, then we have a problem. So why do we have safety rule violations? Inattentiveness, that's what we have to look out for each other. You know, if I'm just not paying attention, I need you guys to bring my attention back into focus. Say, Vince, watch out right there. I go, thank you. Complacency tends to be those situations where you haven't been hurt before. You know, I tease one of my guys. He told me years ago. He doesn't say it all the time. I make it seem like he says it all the time. I've never hurt my hand carrying a ladder. Why do I have to wear gloves? Well, just because you never hurt your hand carrying a ladder doesn't mean you won't hurt your hand. And now that I've said it over and over, if you ever hurt your hand carrying a ladder, this is what happens. But that's complacency. And complacency usually ends when you get the consequence. So when you get, you know, like I say, I've never broken my leg, never broken a bone in my life. You know, I'm flexible, I bend. I broke my leg in 2 places playing softball. Now I carry that with me. I can't say that anymore. I have to be careful. And the last one is that trying to save time. And put that in the category of being self-righteous. Those are the people that even if they get the consequence, they're still going to break the rules. And those are the ones that the accountability policy is directed at. You know, like speeding is a perfect example. You know, I've gotten lots of speeding tickets. I got a reckless driving ticket when I was younger. Do I still speed? Yes. Yes, I do. But that's self-righteousness. That's like somehow I'm better. Somehow I can handle it. But when I get a ticket, I know I deserve that ticket. I'm not going to fight that. I'd have never fought in a ticket. Because I'm like, nope, I deserve every single one of them. I think I get it from my mom. My mom used to call them driving bills. But so when you have it in the workplace, you know, that's where you really put yourself at risk. So when we introduce this policy, we want to improve our performance, reinforce the safety value, but add in elements of ownership. We want to make sure that you guys are owning your own behavior. To say that this is what you can do, these are the consequences. And then finally, we want to create that standard for leadership to say that this is how we will hold people accountable. So anything on here I want to, you know, we want to, again, drive the accountability, create the process, provide examples, provide guidance, and we want to make sure that we kind of took out of the scope, and I've got it on another slide, that we took out of scope observations between individual contributors. So, you know, if the two of you, if you see something that Mike, you go by Michael or Mike? Mike's fine. So, you know, you see Mike doing something and you write up an observation. No supervisor is going to take that observation and use it against you. We may use it as a learning tool, we may use it as a counseling tool, but it's not going to fall within the scope of the accountability policy. Now, I may read that observation and go, I gotta watch out for that guy. You know, but you may have taken that observation and go, you know what, she's right, I'll never do that again. And it never happens again. So now if it happens again, and then I see it, then we can start using this accountability policy. So that's why I encourage everyone to look out for each other, because the more individual contributors look out for each other, the less leadership team has to be involved. So that keeps it on that kind of like that base, just we'll take care of it on our own. But with leads and leadership, there's no outs. So if you see me doing something, it immediately falls into the accountability policy. If Leonardo sees me doing something, it immediately falls into the accountability policy. So we don't get any outs. So we did have a policy, a procedure with regard to safety rule violations. We're evolving that. So this goes from more of a reactive approach. We only used to do investigations when somebody got hurt, which is bad in itself, but it was what we did. Now we want to move towards, okay, let's look at behaviors. Who's got behaviors that may lead to injuries later on down the line, and how do we correct those? So of course that core team is going to be Josh, myself, and Ted. But like I said, it's a long process. You really have to want to just break the rules like multiple times before we even get involved in that discussion. So a lot of even the supervisors and leads have asked me, said, hey, when do we use the process? And I use the word exhausted. So if you have a lead that has been constantly telling you, hey, I need you to wear your safety glasses, I need you to wear your safety glasses, I need you to wear your safety glasses. When they're exhausted with those reminders, then it's time to escalate. So you've had plenty of opportunity to do the right thing, you've been reminded, you've been coached, you've been, threatened, I don't know. So then you move up through reminders, coaching, written warnings, and at that point, then you're getting into because you don't want to have the supervisor make that kind of life-changing decision on their own. We want to make sure that there aren't any other extenuating circumstances that maybe that's beyond the supervisor's grasp of the situation. So when we talk about those courses of action, reminders, refresher training, verbal coaching, written warning, and then when you get to where are we ready for a final written, that's when you get that incident review team involved. Or God forbid termination. So, and that looks very much like performance accountability. If you're not following, dress code, we don't really have a dress code. You're not following showing up to work on time, quality issues. It's that same kind of escalation. Calling your coworkers names, same kind of escalation. Say that, hey, stop doing that, stop doing that, stop doing that. And it starts working its way up. Now, the difference between that kind of performance accountability and safety accountability, performance accountability is top down. Your supervisor will define what those expectations are and hold you to those expectations. Safety accountability, it's top down, bottom up, side to side. Anybody can hold anybody accountable because these rules exist on a high level that everybody is subject to. So if the rule is wear safety glasses on the shop floor, everybody is wearing safety glasses. So if I'm not wearing them and you see it, it becomes an accountability issue. So I put together this to say, like I said, individual contributor, you want to say policy, no applicability, but submit observations, let's have those discussions. But if it's individual contributor and leadership, let's make sure that we're documenting it and we're addressing it appropriately. So you may say, hey, I saw Vince, walking through the shop floor, he's wearing flip-flops. Give me a reminder, submit an observation. If you continue to see it, escalate it to a member of the incident review team, let another leader, let Leonardo know, Leonardo will handle it, and then if you still see it, get human resources involved, and maybe next thing you know, and like I said, this is a long process. 2 months later, I'm still wearing flip-flops on the shop floor. Maybe I just want a new job. I don't know. Maybe I'm seeing how far I can push this, please. But then similarly, when we talk about this process, usually we're talking about leadership and individual contributors, but then it also applies to leadership and leadership. So one of the things that I wanted to make sure we talk about are the things that you're going to be held accountable for. You know, I just don't want to say this is weird, this anything that I could think of at any given time, I'm gonna walk out and say, nope, that's not the right way. But if I'm gonna give you a list of some things that are basic, and then some things that are a little more, I guess, not basic, I guess, I don't know what the opposite. So, if you are unable to perform your duty safely, let your supervisor know. Ask for assistance when there's the safest way to perform a job, safely operating equipment, wear required PPE, no horseplay, practical joking, fighting, possession of firearms or explosive devices, never coming to work under the influence, reporting all job injuries, smoking in designated areas, practicing good housekeeping, complying with government regulations, and following all customer site specific safety stuff at a customer site. Now, some of this stuff is kind of general, but let me show you how this applies. Let's say, Leonardo, I walk by your office and you got a skid outside the door. You got a wooden skid right in the cafeteria. And I say, hey, Leonardo, you understand we have to practice good housekeeping here? And you go, yeah, I understand. And I go, Leonardo, you have to move the skid because people will trip over it. So now I've given him a reminder of the policy. And he says, yeah, okay, I understand. Now I leave and I come back and it's still there. I said, we talked about this, right? He goes, yeah, I'll get to it. I go, okay, I'm giving you another reminder. And you say, okay. Maybe the next day, still hadn't moved it all day. Now, it's deliberate. Now, he's putting other people at risk of injury because of his behavior. Now, I'm going to escalate it. Now, I'm going to take it to Josh, because Josh is his manager. I'm going to say, Josh, this is what I witnessed. Now, Josh is going to come down. Leonardo, the skid is still here. You have to move the skid. Leonardo says, yeah, Vince told me that. I'll get to it. Now, you understand, you hear that these reminders keep popping up, the same verbs keep. So in order for you to escalate to the next level, you have to deliberately not listen to what somebody is telling you. So there are no accidents. So when he disregards Josh goes and gets Ted and says, Ted, come here, let me show you something. So Josh and Ted are standing there looking at the skid. Leonardo, you know the skid is here. Yeah, you told me that yesterday. At this point you're gonna go, what is going on? Ted will do his investigation. Maybe he'll pull Leonardo aside. Maybe Leonardo's having a rough time at home. I don't know, missing his wife. I don't know. And he says, you know what? I just need someone to talk to. So he talks to Ted. Ted says, you know what? It's all good. Leonardo moves the skid. Don't need to escalate it anymore. But it's not a matter of catching people doing bad things. So then we move into the highlighted safety behaviors, which are things that everyone can see. Wearing appropriate safety glasses, wearing secondary eye protection, specifically around flying particles from compressed air, not wearing gloves around rotating equipment, wearing gloves for operational tasks, wearing safety shoes. So these are things that when you're walking through the shop floor, you can look at me and say, is Vince compliant with the things that he said we need to be compliant with? So we can be coming down opposite, coming down the hallway, coming from opposite directions, and we can assess each other. And then say, hey, you know what, where are your gloves? Well, where are my gloves? Where are your safety glasses? And you go, oh, good catch. Now we go back with both spin observations. Making sure you're not getting entangled in rotating parts, keeping guards in place, not lifting more than 50 pounds, wearing seatbelts on powered industrial vehicles, not using cell phones or electronic devices while walking in operational areas. I did this presentation for the facility, and it was, somebody goes, why just operational areas? Why not everywhere?
Mhm.
I'm not sure if I'm ready for that one yet. So some examples. So supervisor witness employee blowing off part without goggles or face shield, reminds them of the requirement. Next day, witness employee doing it again. So you got the reminder, you're doing it again. Supervisor coaches employee, explains the importance, and then notifies this is a documented coaching, documents it as a safety observation. Safety observations, names are irrelevant. At this level, corporate wants to know that our supervisors holding employees accountable. So names are irrelevant here. So if it never happens again, it never happens. Repeat minor incident. Supervisor witnessed employee blowing up part without face shield for a third time in 1 week. Then again, don't get caught up on the timing. It has to do with the supervisor being exhausted. Maybe it's an employee that needs to hear things multiple times before they catch it. Maybe it's a new employee that still needs to be acclimated to a different department or a different culture. So when that supervisor or lead or manager has become exhausted, they're ready to move to the next level. You do the coaching again. You try to understand why it occurred. Then you're saying, you notify human resources. Ted comes out, talks to the employee, does his own investigation, and if there's no, conflicting evidence or there's no reason why the employee's like, yeah, I just, I don't listen to my supervisor. You guy's crazy. Written warning goes to the employee. So now you have a serious incident. So this is probably the biggest change for our facility, well, not just our facility, the entire corporation, was the whole idea of greater accountability. So you have an employee that lifts greater than 50 pounds, and he gets hurt. So now you do your investigation. You talk to the employee. Did you know you should lift more than 50 pounds? Yeah. Yep, I was told that multiple times. All right. You know that's a safety rule violation? Yeah. Yeah. Now you talk to the lead. Then you talk to the supervisor. Yeah, we knew he was doing that. Did you tell him to stop? No, we needed the work to get done. So you do that investigation, written warning issued to supervisor, lead, and employee. Because that's putting greater pressure on the leadership team to hold their employees accountable. I mean, where you used to see a lot of court cases was around horseplay. Corporations will have policies, no horseplay. Have you ever disciplined anybody for horseplay? Well, no. Well, then you tolerate horseplay. Because if you got horseplay going on and you're not disciplining anybody, you might as well not even have a policy. So that's what we're seeing across Flowserve now, where somebody gets hurt, we knew that they were doing that, but we took no steps to stop it. So a lot of the investigations, and I wish I could lead with this. A lot of investigations end with a system nonconformance. Because a system nonconformance is basically saying that there was extenuating circumstances. To say that you couldn't see the stop sign. That's why you went through the stop sign. I need to call my crew and trim the tree back. The weather was bad. That's why you couldn't see the speed limit sign. We need to make it bigger or more reflective. These are system nonconformances to say that the employee didn't have proper training, didn't understand this, didn't know that. Maybe there was no sign to tell you that was a hot. What can we do as a leadership team to make sure that you have all the tools and the communication that you need to be successful, to not get hurt? That was a big question. It says, well, it says don't lift more than 50 pounds. How do we know how much that part weighs? How can we be held accountable? Actually, my favorite question was, eventually you guys will see, Spirit of Flowserve Awards, right? They come in these little boxes. And we tell people if you're carrying a box, you gotta wear gloves.
Mhm.
Right? So I'm doing this presentation for all the managers and the officers going on the second floor. And I say, hey, when you guys go downstairs to get boxes that are in your mail, do you wear gloves? And some were like, no. And some were like, yes. And I'm like, well, there you go. We can't hold you accountable. And then I just kept going with the presentation. And then they were like, well, what's the answer? I'm like, there is no answer. I mean, I have never made an answer. I mean, if there's no answer, I can't hold anybody accountable for it. I can't walk up to you and say, hey, Leonardo, you're carrying a Spirit of Flowserve box and you're not wearing gloves. Unless I do that for everybody.
Right.
Unless I make a rule and then I communicate it. And it's not a matter of me telling you guys right now in this meeting. I have to tell everybody. So system nonconformances are important. So, you know, keep in mind this is all about keeping you guys safe. So that's really the starting point. If you ever feel like it's getting away from keeping you guys safe, then it's moving more towards the punitive, please let me know. So, I know I'm just running way over. So observation process, going over this pretty quickly. You know, simply put, we have just like a Survey Monkey kind of survey that you guys will click on. There's a link on all of the computers, and you'll just fill it out. And I caution people that the word is prolific. If you don't know what that means, it means everybody will see it. Meaning, you hit submit, and an email goes out to a lot of people. And so we've had people submit an observation, and then before they get back to the workstation, somebody is coming over to ask them about it. So just keep that in mind. You know, you submit an observation, it gets into a review stage where leadership, safety team, quality, CIP, maintenance, review it. Then it moves into an action phase. Maybe we take it, develop lessons learned, do some preventive actions, do some safety rallies. We put them all in the Revo system, which is our corporate system for managing incidents. So corporate reads all of them, and then we try to get back and then give you guys closure with regard to feedback. Sometimes I give out Spirit of Flowserves for good ones and whatnot. So this is, you know what, one of my favorite words is penultimate. And penultimate means second to last. You know, ultimate is like ultimate. Penultimate is the one that's right before the ultimate. So this is my penultimate slide. So I'm also the environmental manager. And so within these four walls, nothing is more important than your safety. And that kind of goes without saying. But outside of the four walls, the community, not that they don't care about your safety, you know, but they don't care about your safety. You know, the community, Kalamazoo, the state of Michigan, the United States cares more about what we do environmentally than what we do with regard to health and safety. So, you know, and I challenge everybody to keep their eyes open with regard to things that are going into the waste, weird things that are being spilled out, contractors dumping things down drains. When you see those things, please let me know. I mean, I've been here 5 years, and I've gotten no visits from OSHA, but I've had the waste people out here, stormwater people out here, the air people out here, just poking around to see what we're doing. So making sure we're not messing this up. So if you see anything, please let me know. So this is my last slide, and I call it Path Forward, because earlier I talked about we've got an engaged safety culture. You know, our next up is to be proactive, a proactive safety culture. And I'm gonna tell you, that's scary. And I love this picture, because let me tell you what happened. So nobody gets hurt, okay? It's just a near miss. This is employee 1. That guy over there is employee 2. Employee 2 was in a horrible car accident, could barely walk, and he probably shouldn't have been doing anything. But he was on his way for reconstructive surgery, but He's a manager, so he's going to do what he wants. So they're moving carts across from building 2 to building 3. Employee 1 sees that employee 2 is struggling, lets his cart go to go back and help him, not realizing this is an incline. So when he lets it go and starts walking, this starts rolling down and almost gets probably right about there, and then someone catches it, and no harm, no foul. So it gets reported. And I'm just doing an investigation. And somebody said, oh, you need to go talk to this employee. He saw the whole thing. And so I go talk to this employee. He goes, oh, yeah. So I get a lot of my story from him. And he says, I took a picture. I says, you took a picture? He goes, yeah. So he sends me the picture. So I'm looking at the picture, and it doesn't look like anything's wrong. So I go back to him, and I'm going, what's up with this picture? I mean, it doesn't make sense to the story that you told me. He goes, oh, I took that picture right before it happened. I said, right before it happened? He goes, yeah. He was standing at the smoking area, smoking. And he's looking over there, and he's watching these guys, and he says, I got a feeling that something was about to happen. So, the YouTube mentality, pulled out his camera, took a picture. Now, I say that's engagement because 5 years ago, 10 years ago, he wouldn't have been looking over there. He wouldn't even known what to look for. What he did is what we call mental modeling. You know, the ability to look at a situation and then predict what's going to happen next. You ever have something start to roll off or fall and then you catch it real quick? And you think you got super fast reflexes? You really don't. You really saw what was happening and predicted that it would fall and then put your hand there before it fell. You were doing that mental modeling. That's what he was doing. That's engagement. We want that, yes. But the next question?
Yes. In that situation, would he be in trouble or involved for not having said, hey guys, I know nothing's happened yet, but it looks like this might happen?
So that's what you call being proactive. Now, there's something scary about being proactive. Now, and we had this discussion in the supervisor's office about superheroes and villains. Superheroes are reactive. Villains are proactive. Villains are proactive because every movie, every comic book, everything starts with a villain going, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do something. And now the superhero has to react to that, has to fix that. It's against our nature to do something first, especially when you're putting yourself out there. Because now I see you doing something, nothing has happened yet. I'm gonna walk over and go, looks like you need some help. Let me help you with that. And you're like, what do you mean? Well, looks like you're getting ready to make a mistake. How do you feel?
Well, not too good.
Right, but how will I ever know if I'm right or wrong? How will you know if I was right or wrong?
That's hard to say.
So that is the challenge, because he can walk over there and say, "Hey, you guys, I'm not comfortable with what's going on. Okay, I just want to help. Let me help somehow." You know, and you know, part of our culture is a balance between there's videos that went around called "Listen Up and Speak Up." So I'm going to challenge you guys to speak up, but everyone else I have to challenge with listening up. So I have to create a culture where people are comfortable listening before I create a culture for people speaking up. Because if I tell you to run out there and start speaking up and nobody's prepared to listen, you'll get your feelings hurt. You'll say, I'm never doing this again. You know, so we've got to. That's where there are a proactive culture is at right now. We're creating that foundation of people listening, and we're getting there to where if he walked over there and said, hey, can I help? Oh, yeah, here's what we need. Here's what you can do.
Nice.
But the last thing that we want, to your point, is for you to do nothing and this cart come all the way across and hit employee 2. Because like I said, he was just in a car accident. If he gets hit by a cart, he's not getting up. We're calling an ambulance. And then not only do you have to watch, you have to know that you could have done something. Which is different than if you weren't paying attention at all.
Right.
If you were just standing there smoking and all of a sudden a cart hits a guy, you're like, wow, that happened right in front of me. But you're watching going, man, I feel like something bad's about to happen. And then you knew you could have walked over there and did something. That's the part you have to live with. And you have to ask yourself, you know, is that greater knowledge worth it? I don't know. But that's that path forward that I want to create with our safety culture. So welcome to the team. Hopefully, you know, you'll see some of this. You'll see the evolution. And it's always funny talking to people that were here before I started working here and then talking about the transition that we've done since then. I mean, when I started working here, I mean, it was, you know, you didn't even have any of this. You know, you had people that put the blinders on. They were like, don't even look over in my department. Don't make eye contact with people out in your cell. Now we have people walking over to other cells saying, I see you doing something, let me help you do that. Which is what we need more of. But like I said, it's not always comfortable. And like, you ever see the movie Watchmen?
Mm-hmm.
Let me make sure it's still recording. I'm done with my training. Oh yeah, I recorded the whole time. Good.